November was a busy month because of the Thanksgiving holiday, but I still was able to get some pages done. Some of it was related to the Johanna Basford challenge. So let's check out the completed pages in November. The first one is in Hide and Seek. This was a color along that RJ Hampson had on his YouTube. Basically the little mushroom guys. I used a Hoo journal markers. Oh, they're right here. I used these. I was missing some colors that RJ had, but I did the best I could, and for some of the pink lavender tones for the wood and the frame here, I just went ahead and made that brown because that's what I had. I did go back in with Posca, and I always forget that when shaking Posca, splatters happen, so I pretended that maybe this guy was spreading good. And so some of the magic was going towards Little Vampire. I'll go ahead and leave RJ's up here so you can see his completed pages, and I'll link color along in the video description if you want to try this on this page. I did use these markers on nice quality paper. This was the first Amazon paper and it bled through a lot. Going forward, I'll use alcohol markers in RJ Hampson's books. A part of me wants to buy a book that is published in UK to see if the paper quality is a little better than the Amazon US paper, but we'll see. I've had this on my shelf for a little while now, and I had to get a coloring page in it because it was untouched and it was bothering me. So I decided to go with these ducks. For this page I used Swookenart colored pencils. In the backdrop here I might have used Prismacolor, and I really like the way it turned out. 2 pages that I did in Jewelry Box. This was one of my untouched books. If you saw my Hannah Carlson collection video, I said this was one of the books I have never colored in. Did 2 pages in here. This was the first one. For the backdrop, I used Royal and Langnickel watercolors. Then I went back in with Swookenart. I did use some Arteza white acrylic pen here and Altitude gel pens in some of the other areas. But I really enjoyed playing around with the backdrop and stuff, and it came out a little shimmery. And then the other page in this book was with Swookenart, and they didn't do what I expected. I think if I had a blender pencil or even a blender pen, it would have been a little bit better, but this was kind of like mindless coloring where a couple moments there I forgot that these were little ants, and so I would just color them in and then, oh, those aren't leaves, and so I ended up having to try to fix this one so it didn't look like invisible. But it was a delight to color just to relax. I'll share the Johanna Basford challenge completed pages in a moment, but I got one more or a couple more that weren't related to the challenge. This is just in Fantasia. I used the Hoo markers for the journaling, and it was more of a test. This is the first time I used a marker on a one-sided page for Hannah Carlson, and it was interesting. So Legend, which I will show here, he was just laying on top of my art supplies, but Legend decided that he was going to cuddle, and if you saw my coloring station tour, you'll know what I mean. And I used these Hoo markers, and he made like a big huge streak somewhere on the right side of the page, so then I just started taking those elements and grabbing the different curls that were already on the illustration, and I just started doing kind of like a tattoo on the fox. And I like the color palette a lot, and I don't mind the texture in the back being kind of streaky because it kind of looks like wood or something, but it was still relaxing to color. In case you're just joining me, this book is my 2025 focus book. Although I do have some other coloring books I'd love to complete in 2025, this one is actually my project book I'm hoping to finish by December 2025. Next up, I did some wallpaper here. I did the title page and a little bit on this side. I was kind of doing this mindlessly, like just watching a show. I think we were watching Yellowstone or Jackal, either one of those shows. So that was on both sides. And so I would just grab the markers. These were all done with the Hoo markers. So I just used these. They did incredible in this book. So much that I was like, oh, I need a larger set. But I'll go ahead and use this up before I buy another set. But that was done. Let me see. Oh, and then this page, Colorful World, I think is the name. I watched her tutorial pieces of it, and then I was planning to go back, but then I used based on memory, and I colored this page kind of with some of the methods that she shared. But the background is done with Prismacolor, and then I went back in with the Sakura colored pencils, but they're more like shaped like crayons. I'm not sure I will use them on a type of page like this in the future, but I do think that they have a use for my coloring when it comes to backgrounds, because when I started having some gaps in certain spots, I was able to take the black. I'll show a quick video clip of this set. The other page I did in Magical Worlds is this little castle, and this was another delight to color. I ended up using Swookenart colored pencils for this page, but I did go back in with Altitude gel pens for the swans on top and the castle. And then I kind of mirrored the colors. I really liked the coppery terracotta color I was using, but I really love this copper tone. I didn't expect to enjoy it so much. Like, look at that kettle. It's very cool. Alright, so now we're going to move in to the coloring challenge. I'll leave an actual video of the processes I used. I'll leave a video of the processes I used. You'll get to see the struggle, but for now you get to see the outcomes, and kind of ashamed on this one. This one's the worst out of all of them. There's quite a few that I was like, oh, that was kind of cool. This one was my worst coloring with your left hand if you're right-handed challenge, and I once again used the Ahuhu markers, and this was just to finish it right away. I'll get up a video about the entire process because some of these pages were done real time. If you want to take part of that challenge, I'll leave a link in the video description. It's 8 coloring challenges from Johanna Basford's website. The other page in here. Alright, so this one was actually a real delight. Once again, I used the Ahuhu water-based markers because I just wanted to get it done as fast as I could, because the holidays caught up with me so fast and I wanted to be able to get these done before my deadline. So not the outcome I would have liked, but this was the warm and cool tone challenge. Basically, you color all of the cool tones, so these have a lot of the cool tones, and then I did the warm tones. And you only needed to do one of the two, but I thought it would be cool to do side by side. Plus, since I'm trying to finish this book, I wanted to finish 2 pages in the book for this challenge. The next one is this one. I think this might be one of my favorites. One, I really like the way the blackberry and the gray lavender worked with each other. I had so much fun trying to shade this all in. Once again, I did record all this real time, so you'll get to see a time lapse later. It was a 3 color challenge, and these are the exact colors that is mentioned in the challenge as an example, and I just went with it because it sounded great. And yeah, I can't say enough kind things about this page. It was so much fun. It kind of makes me wonder why I always have to have more than 3 colors. I used Color Soft for this page. I did create a book tracker for this particular book. Here's a quick preview of the tracker, because I needed to see milestones. I needed to see the pages at a glance. So if you want to check that out, I have it free available on my Ko-fi page. I'll leave a link in the video description. Now we're getting into the other color challenges. This one was the simplest one, I would say. It was just inky goodness, and it was just trying to fill in areas with a fine liner. And this is the challenge that I thought I was going to hate the most, but it came out better than expected. I think my biggest thing that I learned is that stripes and polka dots and stuff like that, it can kind of help balance everything out, if that makes sense. Instead of just having the same thing where you're coloring in a leaf, I have noticed that I do like stripes and things like that. So I started to carry that over to another page. I'll have that. I'll share it with you here in a moment. But I actually enjoyed that challenge more than I thought I would. This was the monochrome challenge. There's a little cat in here, and I could only use 1 colored pencil. And it was difficult, but I think adding the stripes and all that stuff kind of made me not feel like it was just as too bland, if that makes sense. I did try to use white in some of the areas just to kind of have it look a little softer. I used Derwent Color Soft for this page, and it did really well. So that is that one. I'm going to save my favorite for last. Let's do Ivy and the Inky Butterfly. This one was quite the challenge, but it was interesting, actually. I ended up using the Ahuhu markers again, the water-based ones, and they didn't bleed through or have any issues. But this was the challenge where you color upside down. I don't know, I just thought it would be kind of neat upside down, and it was. All of my shading was weird. And then I did go in with white out, and I thought it came out okay though. I would definitely color upside down again. That was a really fun challenge. So I got 2 more books. Since this was a Christmas book, I thought I would go fantasy, and then I would try to make the snowflakes look more like flowers with little crosses on them, I guess. So I even added a little dot in the middle just to make it look like that. And I think these turned out to like little crystals, the way I kind of used the white of the paper. So I also filled in a lot of areas just to kind of make it different. And this was a real challenge for me because I decided that I would use Sakura Jelly Rolls, Inkjoy gel pens, and I think I used 1 super marker. I don't do mandalas either. I think this is my first full mandala page, and I think I would have had more fun if I was using markers. I would have never thought this book would have a different purpose. I think this is my favorite of them all because it took 4 people to complete it. So this is the page. Look how beautiful. My instructions was, hey, I'm doing the tree and then pick something and color it, right? And I guess pick something and color it meant I'm going to color just a couple of items. I didn't mind it though, because some of the cute little elements like the butterfly, the snail, I think the owl, and some other elements were done. And so when I got the page back, it was still a lot to color. I ended up thinking, well, I'm going to focus and try to figure out ways to put the colors that I enjoy, like some of the jade and the blues. I used Prismacolor for most of this page, except some of the areas over here are done with Altitude gel pens, but I really like the way this came out. I don't even think the lighting is giving it justice. It was hours. So this was probably the longest next to the gel pen coloring to do, but it was, I think, 3 nights, a couple hours a night. So that was my favorite, and I think it didn't hurt that I really like that color palette, but I do think a lot of it was because I had family and friends coloring with me. Well, I hope you found some of this interesting, and if you haven't already, do try to take at least 1 or 2 of Johanna Basford's coloring challenges because I learned so much.